This is the meeting of the Athens Shade Tree Commission. I'm David Ingram, I'm the acting chair this evening. We have with us David Simcoff, Lee Gregg, Emily Wood as tree commissioners, Paul Wheel representing the council, Anne Bonner, and Steve Pearson is also here in the audience. I'd like to just mention that we'd like to express our condolences to Albert Williams, the usual chair of the Tree Commission, the loss of her husband recently. We'll proceed through a fairly short agenda. The first item is the minutes of the last meeting, December the 7th. Are there any changes necessary to these minutes? Do people want just a moment or two to look over them again? I didn't see any changes necessary, so if we have a motion to approve them.
I move we approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Do we have a second?
Emily? Thank you. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. So the minutes are approved. Are there any items arising out of those minutes that are not already on the agenda?
The only thing I was wondering is how the zoning board variance came out for the Union Street.
They approved
Okay.
the variance, and so it was in line with what we had asked them to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of items to deal with. We've got trees in the rights of way. 152 Morris Avenue, I understand there's a permit request going through, and that, Anne, you've looked at this tree.
Yeah, Ron Lucas and I actually looked at it before the property owner called the city to ask for a permit to remove it. So it's not an emergency, so I don't think we have to I think we can wait and put it on a list with the other tree maintenance activities that'll happen.
So we'll just put it on the
What
record.
kind of tree?
It's a sugar maple, in bad shape.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. What fungus is that growing on it? Did you?
I don't know.
Okay. I was worried.
Is it fruiting now? It wasn't.
Yes,
is it fruiting?
Yeah.
What color is it?
Yellow. And I was wondering whether it was honey. It was the
Maybe.
honey whatnot.
I'll have to look at that because when we saw it, it wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
With this good weather.
Yes, if you could have a look, and because if that, I don't know if we have to take any precautions near there if that what's it called, the honey something fungus. Is it just honey fungus?
There is one, and I'm not, but I'm hesitant to say.
It propagates rapidly once it gets into the tree system.
Yeah, that tree's really far gone.
Oh yeah, that tree's. But I was worried about the one next to it. So.
It only likes dead wood, so it's only going to proliferate on dead wood.
Okay.
So live, healthy trees,
Okay.
they've got their protections,
Okay. Good.
But this might be a photo op.
Yeah, I will check it out. I thought you were getting it. I think some of those fungi are edible as well. So I thought that's where you were maybe going. With
Nope.
that. And I don't know which ones. So.
Right.
Okay. So once the paperwork's through, I'll note that we approve its removal.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. There is a project in process going through council at the moment to add a sidewalk to the east side of Stewart Street, extending it beyond its current ending a little bit south of Christ the King on that side, and taking it all the way down to the OU parking lot. Towards the end of this sidewalk extension, there are 4 trees that are quite large, mature trees, and at some point we may be asked to give our nodding approval, I guess, to council doing this. My initial reaction was, well, does the sidewalk really have to go all the way down there, and do we have to lose the 4 trees? Anne has looked at them, and I think you said that there's a possibility we may be able to save some of the trees.
I thought so. Yeah, did you guys get my email? I sent it late this afternoon.
I read it this afternoon, yeah.
Not to, again, public safety is #1 priority, but I think if the city's willing to work with us, and I thought the first step would be going out there, and I want to make sure I understand the construction project. I don't know where the sidewalk was going to go specifically and what grade it was going to be, but that would be some questions I think that, if
Okay. Well, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to check the right-of-way. And that was because I met with Andy Stone last Saturday to look at this.
Okay.
And They don't know where the right-of-way is yet, but I believe that Andy's going to.
Is it, did they
have that
paint it
re-
yellow? Because they were painting it today. They painted where the water lines are, and there was yellow
Just been a
paint.
utility locate.
Yeah, I
The
think.
right-of-way's 28 feet wide, so there just has to be a determination where it has to
Yeah.
be 28 feet wide, which is not a very big road.
No, no, it's very narrow.
Are they constrained by the ADA requirements to have it 4 feet across the whole length, or can it oscillate, according to?
I'm not sure.
Because remember, it did oscillate around the pine trees by the library. So
On Lincoln.
if there's some room for us to be flexible, it'll certainly save money if we don't have to add the cost of removal of those giant trees.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
They're less than 6 feet from the curb. They're pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was concerned about cutting roots, but again, if the height of the sidewalk can be moderated so that we don't have to go too deep, then that may again give an opportunity to save the trees.
There's just one other thing on that, and it's specifically related to the sycamore. Just knowing the nature of sycamore and how spreading and massive their roots are, I don't know, I had some concerns if we did remove that tree with that new porch extending so close, is that going to impact the foundation as the roots decay? Sometimes the status quo is better. So that would be the one, I think, that would probably be the most valuable one to try to keep. And of course, the mulberry, we're not going to hurt that.
Yeah.
But
And all 4 trees were healthy and didn't have any dead branching.
Well, I thought there was some problems in the silver maple.
In the silver maple?
that would be probably the less valuable of the 4
Yes,
trees.
But not anything that couldn't be pruned out, I don't think.
The city has actually pruned that tree several times. I remember when I was new going down there, and that was a tree that it's just, we had done some work on.
So it really, one thing is happening is Andy's doing the design on this, Keystone, so
Yeah.
we should stay in touch with him. If we
Yes.
want to save those trees or want to keep those trees in place, or some of them, is to be talking to him and saying how far it extends, because he's doing the design and he'll be making those decisions or have one input at that. So that's the person to talk to, I think.
I will, and I think I forgot to attach, I have some information. I copied him on that email, so
Okay, good.
so I'll try to touch base, or if you guys want to, I threw the questions out there. So
Okay, the way it's working is we're trying to assess the property owner, so we need to know the right-of-way and the location of the thing, so we can do that. And that's part of, before we can do that, we need the design. I think that's the intention at this point, the way I was hearing it at council.
I'll get him the Marietta's protocol for working around trees and sidewalks. I'm sorry I didn't get that to you guys earlier.
So let me get this straight, is the owner of the property the one who's going to be putting in a sidewalk?
Usually they have the choice, but it'd probably be easy for the city to do it. You can do it either way, to tell you the truth.
So, but will he pay the city, or how does that work?
The city would charge him.
Okay, great.
The way it works in the city is that the owner is responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalk, and usually for building it, they should chip in. The city has bought sidewalks before. Ohio is an example, and Lincoln's an example of sidewalks built on the city's dollar. I know I did a study on this sometime about 2 years ago, I think, when I first was on Transportation Committee. Some cities actually, if the damage to the sidewalks due to a tree, they actually pay for half of it in some of the cities. Some cities pay for all the sidewalk too. There's a whole range of how you deal
And
with
in
it.
this case, there is no sidewalk existing, and so there is a possibility that the council will pick up
Yes,
parts of
good
it again.
possibility. Again, that's why the design is necessary, so we know what the bill is. It may be a partial assessment, it may be none at all.
Okay, so this is mainly an information item, but we need to keep on top of it. Landscape ordinance issues. Herald Square is the first one. I've got a plan here that shows some existing trees on it, in fact all the ones that will have to be removed, including the one down here that's on the right of way, because it's right in the driveway of one of the properties that they're proposing to build. What they need from us at the moment is a preliminary approval, or at least a note that they've been to us and reported this to us.
Okay.
We need to give some feedback on what we think about how many trees they may have to plant on this site. In the past, we have said that developers have to put a tree every 30 feet along the roadways. that could be a bit of an imposition in this case because some of these are only 20 feet apart. So we may have to go with medium-sized trees, 20 feet apart. We've also had a tendency to require one tree per unit. And so that would mean quite a number of trees being planted here, and there may need to be some consolidation because there may not be space to put a tree in every yard, basically, because these yards are quite small. So those are some of the thoughts that I've got at the moment in how to handle this.
Are they removing or keeping the Norway maples on Blick Avenue?
They're going to have to remove that one, I think, because it's right in the driveway of this property here. I met Jim Bloom a couple of days ago and asked about the possibility of switching these so that the gap appeared here, and he didn't seem too favourable to that idea.
Okay, there's also 6 Norway maples on the other side.
Yes.
Are they removing those? Or
Yes,
they...
all the stuff on Blick Avenue have been removed because it's actually
driveway.
on their property and it's in their driveway.
Okay.
It was just the possibility that with these 2 trees over here, there's a locust, very nice locust, big one, but a little bit thorny.
Very thorny, yeah.
And then there's
hazard.
there's the maple here. Well, the thorns are probably high enough out of the way that you don't have to worry about it. Anyway. So that's where we are with that. Steve, do you want to make any comments about the Herald Avenue site at all? What you think?
Yeah, no, the only thing that you'll have to do is before the subdivision can be approved by council, they have to have an approved tree commission landscape plan. So they did submit drawings on what they propose to plant. This information here is in addition, the trees they have to remove. And so they're finally, before they can get their final approval, they have to have a tree commission reviewed. So they'd submitted their intention earlier, a meeting or so ago.
Yeah.
And then the issue came up about the removals that might be necessary.
Do the numbers match up, David? Were you able to?
No, they're going to have to plant more trees than what they've got there.
You know, this might be a site too for evergreens. I mean, you can cluster evergreens, and it might really do a lot just to break up the density.
Except they're not. Shade trees.
Oh.
Yeah, there is that.
Now, there was, when Alvy and I went to look at this, we looked at the embankment. We were wondering if they were going to be clearing out trees from the embankment.
Not according to that plan there. This
On the
is
railroad right of way?
That they can't. That's the city right of way,
Okay.
and it goes all the way down to this, what remains of an alley, I think, on this side down here as well. So that the city has both the railroad right of way and this section down here, and they're not showing removal of any trees in that area.
Okay. There's some nice black cherry in there, and a nice silver maple, a lot of box elder.
They're building it up, though, right? They have to raise the grade.
They have to raise the grade. I believe this is right, isn't it, Steve? They have to raise the grade beyond what it is now, to where that.
They're pretty close right now to where they need to be to meet the flood damage prevention ordinance.
Okay.
So it's very close.
Okay. So the.
More fill, if any, will have to be brought.
Okay.
But that'll have to be established by a surveyor
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
final work.
The other point.
Flood area.
The other point that I raised with Jim Bloom is that we need some sort of provisional utilities plan, because we don't want to go saying put trees here, here and here and then discover that there are major utilities works being done just where the trees are going to have to go.
Yeah. It's pretty tight as is.
Yeah. So what I'll try and do, I'll circulate a letter electronically that I'm going to send to them on our behalf with this in. Steve, do you know what the date is for that subdivision decision?
They had their public hearing today. I wasn't able to attend that meeting. And they had a preliminary approval, but I wasn't here, so I don't know that they got their final approval.
The subdivision.
They had their public hearing.
The subdivision meeting will be a meeting of council, isn't it?
There'll be a recommendation finally that comes out of planning commission and goes to council.
And it's at that stage that we have to have an approved.
Well, before they have their final council plan approved, they have to have an approved tree.
Okay. Yeah.
They've made steps toward that during this preliminary period with planning commission.
Okay.
The most logical place for planning is between the buildings, is the middle section.
Yes. There's a major sewer going straight down the middle here.
Straight down the middle, okay. That
See, that's
explains
why we need the utility map.
Yeah.
That's nice to know.
Yeah.
How
There are
short
water
are
lines,
they?
fortunately, over here and over here. There's nothing really in these two areas here. But they are in the right of way at that point, and so we would have to give consent, which we can, to planting of trees to fulfil the landscape ordinance in the right of way. So
Oh, that might look nice, though.
so that's allowed. Yeah, I mean, and it will put trees at roughly 20-foot spacings here, and then a little bit further there. So I think it would be all right to do it that way. But I wanted to get some assurance from them that they weren't going to have to put a major utility down one of these things. We hadn't heard about. AEP have big cables going off to this side as well, but they're out of the way.
Harold, yeah.
Are they buried?
No,
No, the
it's
telephone poles.
one of the major feed lines, I think. Comes across that way. So, is there anything else on this for the moment?
So it sounds like we do need utility maps on this?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is indicate, it's one of these preliminary approval things where we don't really approve it.
Yeah.
We simply say, yeah, we acknowledge that you're moving forward on this by giving us these plans, but we expect to see something like one tree for every unit, one tree every 30 feet along the roadways, or something equivalent, maybe one tree every 20 feet if they're smaller trees. We need the utility, where the major utilities are going to be, so that we can get a feel for whether some consolidation is going to be necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, we're in a to and fro.
Okay. I'm glad you're doing it.
I'll show you the letter.
I like
Okay.
they've chosen honey locust. I think that's a good, it's nice to have.
That's
some
obviously
more
growing
variety.
well
Well,
already.
I think those
It's tough.
recommendations down there are what we told them to do on a previous iteration of this. So that's why you like them.
They know your taste.
Sweet gum and red maple
Yeah.
also. Basswood.
Okay. So Summit at Coates Run. This is the next item under the landscape ordinance issues, for which again we're being asked for preliminary approval, and we'll have to do another letter outlining what we think about this.
I'll look at this one.
Um,
Oh, you do have one? Okay, great.
yeah. So I've made some very rapid notes, having looked at these 4 drawings that we copied from the coloured document that is available. There still appears to be some quite major earth removal going on. It would be useful to know what fraction of trees they're going to leave on this site. They are clearly going to leave some trees there because they're talking about using them to buffer this development from its neighbours, which is a good thing.
Can I interject,
Certainly.
though? When I drove down Richland Avenue today, I happened to just, with this in mind, be looking at the one across the street that we had been involved in. If you guys notice the ring around the whole place, all the trees are dead. All the the buffer trees. And again, they're victims of construction damage. I mean, that's pretty common that you lose. But, the mortality doesn't hit for 2 or 3 years. And it's just something to consider. I know that the buffers are important, and we've got to try to, and I'm sure the developers want to put them in.
In a development like this, we can put in a remark like that so that the buffers have to be maintained, and so...
Well, if you want
buffers have to
100
be-
feet, you got to add 100 feet. I mean, really, when you think about the drip line. So, that it's just something to be aware of, and definitely drive up there and look
Yeah.
at which one is that?
University Estates, I think.
Yeah, yes. You can especially see it when you're driving south on Richland.
Although I don't think we have any jurisdiction over trees there, do we?
No, but it's an example. It's an example of
what
construction
happened.
damage.
So in
and-
other words, those were trees that were left.
Yeah, right on
but
the edge.
Because of the construction,
Yeah.
they
Heavy equipment on the roots, I assume.
I think
and-
even just the fill, like that fell down, when they flattened that hill.
Yeah,
and
they
then
had major
and
drainage problem initially,
Yes, yeah.
flooding down that hillside.
Yeah, so it could have been kind of a accumulation. Also, notice these trees, there are a lot of trees interjected in the planting. If you look at the scale, they have 25-foot spreads on them, so to be realistic, they're gonna have 5 foot, you know what I mean? Just for our eyes to be, see if you look, they're drawn a lot bigger than they would be naturally. naturally,
Well,
and that
yeah.
always happens. But it's important, I think, for us to.
And that's one thing, it wasn't clear to me whether this was supposed to be illustrative or whether it was supposed to be actual, because there are
They're not
the
enough.
gaps between the trees are too great. I mean, there should be a tree every 10, or a tree island every 10 parking places. And the same applied to the roadway as well. The plantings along there weren't close enough together either.
So do you have a measurement or?
There's, I think on the bottom there's a little scale
down at the
spot.
bottom.
Okay, all
But
right.
I'm working on the basis that these are probably 9-foot wide parking spaces anyway, and I just added them up, and we've got more than 10 spaces.
Okay,
Because in
right.
fact, I think our rule is that it's the 10 spaces rather than the actual distance.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of figuring out how big those trees are, yeah, if you take it that a parking space is about 9 feet wide,
Those
then-
are 20-foot. Those are mature trees that
Yes.
are growing there.
yes, yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
It's
And
really
even
makes
then,
it
the
difficult.
tree coverage is quite small. I mean, if you think about it in terms of percentage of the area,
Yeah.
that is not it isn't very well covered
Yeah.
in terms of area. And that was another thing that I wanted to do, was to look at the total area and see what they're doing in terms of potential coverage long term for this site.
Oh, you mean like grass or?
No, I mean, if we want a site to be something like 40% covered in trees at maturity, then is that practically possible with what they're proposing?
I was under the impression they were going to leave quite a great deal of it actually landscaped. I mean, but maybe that's my, maybe that's my misinformation. Or just,
What sort of landscaping?
I don't know. I thought they were talking about buffer zones all the way around.
They've got
Yeah,
the
but they're-
evergreens delineated on it looks like on the east side there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Next to
real
Carriage
nice and
Hill
dense.
Apartments, yeah. And on the north side, the evergreen buffer that they indicated was Norway spruce were actually mostly white pine. And nice, healthy, mature white pine. There were a couple.
Oh, that
were-
are already there.
Yeah, that's what they're, yeah, and they were indicating it as
Yeah,
Norway
because
spruce.
that was one thing I was going to compliment them on, the fact that they wanted to save these trees
Yeah.
for the buffer.
Yes.
But
But I
I think
think they
you've got
should,
Can you take
I'm sorry.
if they really want to save them, I think they should talk to Ann about what is necessary to save them.
Okay, I'll recommend
And
that
they
they...
need to be braced to replace them. If the construction leads to their death.
They're pretty close to the existing houses. I wasn't sure quite where the property line was when I was up there today, but those pines were very close.
Yeah, well, we can provide, there's a lot of good information. It's real easy to protect trees, and there's some step-by-step guidelines and stuff that I'm doing to a lot of other developers, so I can get it to them.
And there's also a lot of 20 to 30-year-old growth that's very oak hickory. That's pretty nice, straight, healthy. So I don't know what they're doing in this area here, if they're gonna, it's not a parking lot. I'm not sure what this big, it's
Yeah, well,
probably
this
about a
is-
good 5 acres.
This is this looks like a slope, if these are contour lines
Right.
there. And Emily and I were wondering, it says here, conditional uses approved as accepted uses. And we wondered, Steve, do you know what that?
Flex
Okay.
parcel, R3, underlying zone, conditional use.
Conditionally permitted uses in the zoning code, we have to go to the zoning appeals. So they're just indicating that they may possibly,
Do something.
in future development, ask for a conditional use from the zoning board. That includes, really neighborhood type businesses, barber shop, carry out, doctor's office, those kinds of things. That's what that indication is.
Okay.
So they don't know what the future development may be. I think what they're trying to indicate is it will be R3 uses, permitted uses, possibly R3 conditionally permitted uses through the
So-
zoning board also.
But we're talking about structures, they're not,
Yeah.
use being, we're planting as the grass or whatever, a use as an open space, so, all right.
That'll need additional detail when those development plans become more solidified. Right now, I think they're just trying to indicate the widest variety of use they may have.
Mhm.
There's no indication necessarily, here's what the structure is really going to be. It's illustrative.
Did you have any opinion, Steve, on whether the secondary access road, emergency access road, should be treated as a vehicle access road for the purposes of the landscape ordinance?
Well,
It's not, they haven't planted any trees along it, and I'm going to say that they should. I'm wondering if you had any opinion on that at all.
No, it's a big vehicular use area, but it's for emergency zone.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's vehicular use,
The
so,
regulations aren't.
yeah.
But it's a paved area.
Yes, yeah.
And we're concerned about shading
Yes,
paved
that's,
areas.
so there's,
And it's
there's,
steep with possibilities for erosion.
Yeah, but it's still impacting climate and stormwater and having trees there.
yeah,
Yeah, and it would be a way of increasing the coverage.
yes.
It would be an
Yeah.
easy way of their putting in more having more trees, more.
There is a young growth already coming up. As you're going up on the right side, I guess that'd be the south side, it's very scrubby and young, but
Where?
on this side, and on the other side, the north side, it's very, there's some mature woods going up on that side. So they may be able to fill in with existing.
Good.
I had a question about these 2 rows, it looks like
Trees or something?
small trees.
Mm-hmm.
Lollipops? Yeah.
And the reason for that, you had raised the question of why there were not, the row of trees did not continue all the way down there, and it looks like they have eliminated trees in between these 2 rows of whatever.
Yeah, I don't think, is there anything in your coloured one that indicates what they might be doing
This
there?
says red, looks like little red dots on it, that's about it. Not good enough to tell what trees they are.
Yeah.
Must be red maples.
Is it where the sidewalk is or something?
don't
Could
think
that
so.
be, or, because maybe they're assuming the kids won't follow the contour, they'll just go straight down the hill maybe, or?
I don't see any roadway there.
Yeah, the road swings.
Comes directly from the clubhouse
Yeah.
and the pool.
Yeah,
So there might be steps or something?
Well, there's nothing shown on these drawings, because if you look at the one for the Richland frontage, which is 42, you can see the start of those 2 lines,
yes.
and they're walking up the hill at that point, and there's no obvious footpath or anything being laid onto this drawing.
But I think that raises the question of why they would have those extending down one side rather than shade trees
Yes,
along this area.
I'll make a note of that.
And why shade trees would be eliminated along this curve, between these 2 rows.
On
I mean,
page
I
42,
I
yeah.
couldn't see, I couldn't figure out a good landscape reason for doing that. Maybe sort of directing a sight line, but the corner of the building wouldn't seem to be a logical place to try to direct the public's eye.
And looking the other way, what are you going to see there? You're gonna
There's no location of a sign,
Yes,
development sign up
down,
there.
down
is
at the
there?
bottom
Yeah,
by
but-
Richland Avenue.
Yeah, but I mean up there on in front of that building, the corner of that building. If there were a big sign up there or something, that would be. not
well,
saying-
that is the clubhouse,
Yeah.
the one there that these 2 lines are sort of coming towards.
So they're trying to emphasize the clubhouse? Is that
I
what
don't
you're
know.
saying?
Well, I thought that might be the only place where there was like a clear view from Richland Avenue. I mean, it was all speculation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's sort of like,
To frame it somehow.
yeah, it's sort of like
But-
when people
But-
go by to. But the
They're
clubhouse
calling it a
may be the
focal
most
point.
attractive building.
Yes, but the
Oh, I know.
corner of it rather than an interesting facade, that's what seems so strange.
It's maybe a whole new architectural feature in corners.
Maybe something we don't know about yet.
Yeah, anyway. So, those are my thoughts at the moment. Thank you for embroidering them suitably. Again, I'll circulate a letter amongst us. Make sure everyone's
But-
happy.
But Emily and I were concerned about the erosion problem here. And if they have plans for securing the soil and everything on this slope here,
Okay.
with the one that's the 3.5 flex parcel.
And,
They'll have to provide a land development plan for the whole site, which includes during
Yeah.
construction. There's also a bond that's required to make sure that the slope does remain stable.
Yeah.
That's under the land development ordinance. So this
But
may be
we
built
could
upon-
suggest more trees are planted in those areas to assist with stability anyway.
Except if they're
Except if they're
wanting
going
to
to.
develop it.
If they're gonna put in,
Well, they have to take them out then.
Do we normally add up at this stage? Do we start talking numbers, you know, with the perimeter requirements and the?
Yes.
Into,
Yeah.
The
Oh,
parking
okay.
lot.
Yeah, I mean, we can deal with the parking lot, we can try and see how the units, I mean, in this case, you can't really, I mean, the one about the units mainly applies to these developments with single-family homes.
Yeah.
So the Harold Street one is more in line with that, where you've got these sort of multiple units being put together, but we would still expect, I think, a tree at each one of those, whereas here, in the past, I don't think we've required anything like that in terms of numbers of trees. I'm looking at Steve just in case he can.
You've reviewed 2 plans and approved them previously
Mhm.
for different incarnations of this project. So
Yeah.
this will be the 3rd time.
Yes.
But I couldn't remember, so are they, but at what stage do we really start doing the math on this? I mean, not yet, they need to bring something a little more
They
specific.
had
Specific
an
enough.
informational meeting with the planning commission today. And I believe there's a possibility they may ask for final approval in 2 weeks. So
Really?
in any case, it's the same as Harold Square, subdivision, PUD, either case, there has to be a final plan endorsed by the tree commission prior to council's.
Yeah. So we've got some time to try and get down to
It
it.
actually, the regulations actually say the plan approved, excuse me, as part of the planning commission process before a recommendation goes to council. But normally what happens, and you've seen this too, when they're thinking about construction, landscaping is probably, as they're working down the list. Like I said, I wasn't at the planning commission meeting down, but they talked about landscaping in addition to some other development questions. But in any case, they'll have to have, just like the other 2, Campus Edge one time, Campus Edge 1 and 2.
Mhm.
The names changed so many times on this project too. This is the 4th or 5th name.
but is it the same firm, the same company?
No.
Or did they sold it to somebody else?
Well, they're working with Edwards.
It's more complex than that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
There's an owner whose lease owns the property, I guess, or
There's
lease.
a leaseholder who's been partners in all 5 or 6 incarnations, Mr. Dow.
And this is,
Milestone Developments, which is the last plan you looked at. And there was a plan approved for, this is a new development partner, Edwards Communities. Yeah, this is the 4th or 5th partnership proposal.
So they're not, the last time we looked at it, there was a very elaborate underground stormwater detention area. It's kind of new technology. That's off the table now?
To the best of my understanding, water's going to be stored on surface, so there'll be detention ponds.
These ponds.
yeah, there's small retention dry basins around the edges.
Okay.
of the
You can
property.
see in the color.
Yeah.
Color
Yeah,
map
that's,
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
one towards
I think there was
Dairyland and
no
one
de-
towards
de-
Richland there.
storage in ponds as opposed to the below grade.
There were several new areas.
This is not, actually, this is more up to date than the color one, actually. I see.
There was
Yeah,
another
that-
one.
There's one, and
there.
there's one closer to Richland, too, at the bottom of that flex site you're talking
Oh,
about.
there.
Then we have to submit those calculations for pre and post development rates runoff. It's the, it's an engineering zero,
Mhm.
net zero.
Yeah.
It's calculated off critical storm, and they have to calculate different degrees of critical storm. And then when the engineers look at this, which, I'm usually looking for the summary paragraph, it works or it doesn't work, and it will have to work for the planning commission to let it go.
who does that? Their engineer, or does the state?
Their
provide
engineer
us-
submits plans to the state, not the state, to the city.
In the
They
city.
submit, we have it reviewed by Burgess and Nyland at the developer's expense.
Oh, is that right? To see if it does actually will work.
Yeah.
Our engineering firm reviews and verifies their engineer's report they submit.
Their math, make sure the math is correct.
You know, those,
It's a book that thick, it boils down to it works or it doesn't.
the
Yes or no?
detention basins, those would be good sites for, like little wetlands. You know, the kind of wetlands that can be dried, and then when water comes in, that can really handle a lot of water. They're probably not interested in hearing that, but that
Actually,
would be a very.
these guys appear to be very flexible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
well,
maybe we can get some willows planted nearby,
yeah,
soak up the water.
good idea.
Keep it off of Richland Avenue.
Yes.
This might be another case too, we might think about recommending them engineered soils, because the soil, a lot of soil is gonna be removed,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of soil is very heavy clay content too.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, remember we had to get the drawing on the tree pit, how big to make it, what type of engineered fill to put in. I think that was part of the last review of this too.
But they would not have that, it's totally different designers, and so we need to get that.
There was a guy named Tom Taylor, I think, from,
Yeah.
remember him, from
Yeah.
Zanesville, he was the last one.
He's out now.
He's not,
No,
as far as
this,
I know, he's not part of it.
He's never gonna talk to me again.
But they'll have to submit through whoever they choose as a landscape.
So
This is
do-
just some preliminary things. that-
I think you're saying, though, that we will be dealing with subsoil,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
and that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and the current soil is not good. It's very heavy
Probably,
clay.
In some places, you know, my experience would be there's not gonna be much soil left anyway. You're gonna be down to shale,
Mhm.
shale in a lot of places.
They're talking about 300 cubic yards, I think, 300,000 cubic yards, right?
So there may even have to be engineered fill brought in even for the buildings, depending on where the final grade is. And a lot of that is site driven too. Once you bare the site, then you really know. They have 100 borings in the soil borings that they take in the air to determine depth of bedrock and suitable building site. But that doesn't necessarily take into consideration, let's put it this way, all the best soils that they can keep, they should stockpile somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we need to remember that these are all new people, and every recommendation we made before, we have to bring to them again, whether it's planting the trees, you know, making soil recommendations, suggesting some wetlands where there, whatever, you know, and maybe tree species also then, you know.
Oh, yes.
All
yeah,
those
yeah.
previous suggestions are,
Well, I mean, I think the first thing to do is to get them thinking about the numbers of trees that we
Good.
want to plant,
Good
and then we
point.
can talk to them about
right.
Species.
what
All
to
right.
plant.
One thing that we might mention is that we don't like long rows of the same species.
Right.
Well, maybe. I mean, those tree-lined avenues.
They're wonderful as
Anyway.
long as they're there.
Yes. Well, they don't last forever. You'll get your chance to diversify when the odd one dies.
Okay.
Right, physicists like
Yeah.
monoculture.
It's the order of things.
Structure and order and symmetry.
Structure,
That's
right.
it. That's good.
Can have a better idea and they'll all look
Yeah.
similar.
And I apologise for pausing, but I'm the secretary tonight as well as the chair.
That's okay, take your time, do it right.
So is there anything else we want to?
One thing that I wondered about, which is probably outside our responsibilities, but there are these nice big courtyards, and it looks as though they have a lot of small trees there. I was
Little red
wondering
ones, yeah.
why they wouldn't want some large shade trees there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is no key, is there, for this?
No.
No.
Drawing to
No.
indicate what
Preliminary, yeah.
what the red ones are.
Yeah. It's a general idea what they're gonna do with the buffers.
Is this at the same beds as the other proposal?
A little bit less, a little fewer units. There's a public hearing, actually, it'll take place, I believe it's 2 weeks from today. The required public hearing for the planning commission. So, and I'm not sure what the planning commission discussed today, like I said, it was a meeting.
882 beds.
882.
Yeah.
So it was what, 900?
900 hasn't gone down that much.
Yeah, really, that isn't.
750 parking spaces.
Yeah, I think they got .95 parking ratio.
8.85.
And the last one you looked at had 896, I believe.
Units or parking?
Persons.
Beds.
Oh, okay.
Persons.
Units are much less, it's how many beds per unit.
270, I think, 274, something like that.
258.
258.
258 units.
Good call.
They have a wonderful page here
Summary page, yeah.
that summarises all this stuff.
They give it to us so we can absorb facts quickly at city council.
Oh, I think it's fair. Because a lot of this data the Tree Commission can use as well when it's trying to figure out.
There is a section where it talks about how much land they're moving. There's also a topo map and where they're going to put the fill. And again, this is all very preliminary because they're not going to move. They're going to move a lot of it off the university side, but some of it's going to stay on site so they can recover.
Can I borrow this while I'm writing my letter?
You can.
Thank
yes.
you.
Again, I want to make you aware that's not the latest version. I think you're looking at this map that you have says the 29th, and that's, I think, the 26th of
Okay.
December. So this one's a little bit more informative.
There was new information just came in today. I submitted last week in order to start the public hearing process. And then they brought copies, additional copies to the planning commission. At least, when I talked to Ryan Pearson from the Edge Group, he wanted to know if he wanted to should have given it to me, and I said, just bring them to the meeting and distribute it to the members. So there might be one date just 2 or 3 days after
The 29th?
when you see
Yeah,
it.
okay.
It's just a real recent one also. Should say final development plan on it, and then a date on the color booklet.
Okay, so is there anything else? Okay, so let's move to the next item on the agenda, if I can find my agenda.
Emerald Ash Borer?
Oh, yes. Anne, could you give us an update on where we are with the Emerald Ash Borer?
Well, thanks to the hardworking volunteers, David Simkoff and the OU Botany Department, we've gotten pretty much everything that we had anticipated inventoried. And Paul Wheel, who had, generously spent, gosh, you spent
I
how
had
many
fun.
Saturdays?
Just 3. I just missed 3 farmers markets.
Sorry.
That's okay.
They did a great job. So they've gone to the work study person who's entering the data, and I think she's got all the points on the maps done, and right now she's working on completing all the data entry, into the spreadsheets. So hopefully in the next month we'll be able to share some of the numbers. There are more ash trees than I think than I had realized. I think from just my looking at them, they're smaller than I thought. There were a lot of young ones.
Well, it's easier and less expensive to deal with.
Yeah.
Are these ones that we've planted, or are these ones that people have volunteered?
I
The
think there's
community?
16 in front of the Athens Rec Center.
Oh,
That was
Well, yes,
probably
we
the
knew
highest.
about those, yeah.
Yeah, the highest concentration, right there at the entrance.
And so this is the whole of the Far East side, basically, that
Yeah.
has been done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know when we were doing the inventory, a lot of them weren't technically in the city right of way, just close enough. We were making calls saying, if they're going to fall in the road. So they're not all our responsibility on some level, too.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask. At what point are we going to determine whether they are in the right of way?
That is delineated on those maps, and so that's what's going to be so useful, I think, about this inventory.
Okay.
That the city administrators will be able to use that, and they'll know which ones
Okay.
are on the right of way.
So, what happens next after we've got the data? Do we then start looking at surveying another section of the
rest,
city?
Yeah, and so I need to talk with Ron about how to start the next segment.
So
Take a
you'll
breather,
do that.
'cause,
Good.
About what percentage of the city did we do, actually?
Yeah,
2%,
do you know?
3%?
Oh, more
probably
than that.
More than
No, it's-
that?
it's-
Okay.
Probably I'd say 20 or maybe 30, 20 maybe? 20%?
Maybe 20, because we still have the whole south end that I
Yeah,
think
I mean, the
is gonna
south
be-
side is going to be a major
Yeah.
project.
Okay, well, that was
Yeah.
pretty good. That was-
Yeah.
yeah.
Although the rights of way actually very narrow on the roads in the south side. They have few sidewalks, unlike the east side.
Mm.
And the west
We got
side,
a lot of unplatted lands,
yeah.
too, on the south side. Farm acreages that were just subdivided, not as major subdivisions. So
Mhm.
a lot of roads are just easements as opposed to actually platted public ways. So your tree's gonna be a lot closer to the south side of the road.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Some of them probably a lot bigger.
But thanks really to the council and the tree commission members and all the volunteers. I mean, everybody did such a wonderful job. It's really a neat project.
It's a good way to-
They haven't started checking the track trees.
Yes,
They have.
the Ohio Department of Agriculture set out 2 trees per township throughout the whole state, and all of southeast Ohio has been checked, and those trees removed and debarked, and there are no emerald ash borers found anywhere, so that's good.
It certainly is. I noticed that the spread seemed to be from the northwest down 76 and down 23.
Yeah.
And so that made me feel a little better
It follows
about
the
this area.
highways. It
Yes.
follows the highway, so
Yeah,
maybe
this
that
is the-
Nelsonville delay might be a good thing in terms of the trees. So I don't know if there's a bright spot.
I think Delaware County is the closest county that has the border now, and that's
Yeah.
just north of Columbus.
Well, there's also a patch in eastern Columbus, outside of Easton.
Okay.
And again, they know the origin of that. That was from nursery stock from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems it spreads slowly, but that one is naturally spreading now, and they haven't really, so that's out of control at this
Mhm.
stage, at least from my
Okay.
understanding of it.
So that's the
but,
closest.
Yeah, that's probably the
site.
closest
Okay.
one.
Yes.
But in terms of, I think, the problems are the man-made spread, either on vehicles or moving firewood.
Mhm.
So if we can continue to hammer the message not to move firewood, to be not digging trees up from bringing them to other places, you might.
We're gonna have big baths that the cars can run through you, decontaminate the wheels, tires.
This is just another negative to Michigan, huh?
He said that.
Ron's not here, so we should just.
Yeah, he's going to see that I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Anne. I wrote a letter on our behalf to Jeff Maiden about the potential plantings along the proposed bike path extension towards Dow Lake. I haven't heard anything back from Jeff. Did you hear anything at all, Emily? I think you were in touch at one point.
Yes, he has made that change in
Okay.
the spruce.
Okay. Yeah. There was a blue spruce we'd suggested as Fat Albert, and I think Emily had an alternate for that one.
I had mistakenly thought that it was a smaller one and was looking at the information of the tree beside it. But I've checked that out with him. And apparently the landscaper had questioned that selection if we were wanting a smaller one.
Okay. Good, so that will then move along, hopefully, and eventually something will happen. Is council involved in that? I mean,
Not at this point.
okay.
I don't think we even have seen I thought the grant approvals are going through the county or the city. I guess the city, but I haven't seen it. All we do is authorize the mayor to ask for the money.
Okay.
And maybe he needs more money than he asks for us.
Okay. Very good.
So will this complete the project that was visioned, this most recent extension, that will take it to the dam?
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
no, it'll take it to about the intersection of where 50 goes over East State Street. It's to
The overpass there, Motel
yeah.
A.
The
Okay.
motel there.
Okay,
It'll complete the city section.
Yeah.
okay.
But there's still a problem of getting across the road.
Mm.
There is the opportunity, though, for people to get into the sort of trails through the connection across East State Street at Hope Drive, I think it is,
Mm.
because that's an often used access point into the trail system. So that will mean that people will be able to get in there.
There's more mountain biking.
Yeah,
territory.
yeah. I mean, it's hiking and mountain biking.
Yeah.
So it's a world, yes. Yeah, they're not easy trails by any means at that point. But I think it's an interesting fact you will be able to get.
Mm. And you can probably jump off to Della Drive, which is not the official route to go, but
Mhm.
it's a fairly nice road. It doesn't get a lot
Yeah.
of travel.
Good. So, I don't have anything more on the agenda other than the next meeting will be on the 1st of February at 7 p.m, unless that's a major problem to the folks who are here.
February 1st?
February 1st, Thursday, first Thursday of the month.
Okay, and the only thing in terms of other business is mentioning this AEP hearing about.
Oh, yes.
Basically, Office of Ohio Consumers Council is going to have public hearings, and one is in our area, the 25th, for testimony for AEP's rate changes in terms of service, but includes service in terms of tree trimming. So if you think that's things that
So
should
when
be-
is that meeting again?
It is Athens, in Athens, it's Thursday, January 25th, 6 p.m. It's at the Baker University Center, room 242. And I have extra copies of the information that was given to us. So
Okay.
if anybody wants one of those.
So if people want to go and give testimony about AEP's rate application, they need to go to the Baker Centre on 25th of January at 6 p.m.
Yeah, it basically states the reliability of AEP's service has been an issue for a number of years, especially since 2003, where the staff of PUCO has prepared 2 investigative reports about the company's practices, expenditures, record keeping related to tree trimming and other local operations needed to provide electricity to customers. So if we have concerns, which we've had,
Yes.
this is an opportunity to bring it up.
Yep.
There's a section in here about how to testify at these public hearings if you need information on that too. That's why I brought extra copies. So
Will this be put in the newspaper?
I imagine it will be or has already, but I haven't seen it. I wasn't looking for it though, so I don't know.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I have
Yes,
one of those?
go ahead.
Steve, did you have anything at all to?
Just hit one other thing. I want to thank Mr. Ingram for coming to my office the other day and spending quite a bit of time. I think we ended up spending a couple hours reviewing things and preparing for tonight. One of the things that he didn't mention was we reviewed plans for Taco Bell, and there has to be more than likely there'll have to be a consolidation plan approved. The drawings really are pretty excellent when it talks about existing contour, proposed contour, existing utilities, proposed utilities. They're not all on one sheet, but they're all there and very easy to look at. The trouble is there's not a planting scheme laid on top of that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of information there, and I'll have to get back to the owner to say, you know, you do need to submit a plan. I'd spoken with him previously about that. What I have is state-approved plans, which the state's not concerned about landscaping, but the developer has known in the past that will have to take place.
Yeah, and I didn't want to raise it particularly tonight because
I'm sorry.
I'm glad you pointed out we did spend time looking at it, but the next stage is for the developer to submit a landscape plan
Right.
of some sort. There is nothing there at the moment, and I was concerned because I can see that there'll have to be some changes made to the front embankment because there's no way we can plant trees there, and I suspect that the utilities people are going to have concerns about the bank washing down into the gully at that point.
Yeah.
So they may have to put a retaining wall there. So there are still things that need to be done on the site really before they can really figure out what the landscape plan is going to be. And they do have 2 planting seasons anyway to get all this together.
The proposal right now is for a retaining wall in the front. That's why you see the dirt pushed up so close. There's concern from, I actually talked to Jim Sands the other day about it because people were concerned that we didn't have a repeat of Bennigan's. The street department, the sewer department, or where we have a lift station right there, that even sediment erosion control measures are necessary right now, apart from establishment of final grade and actual construction of retaining walls. So there's still quite a bit yet to go on that, but I don't want anybody to think it's out of the eye of the city at all.
And in
I
terms
don't want to
of
repeat the Bennigan's experience.
where they will be planting trees, they'll either have to create tree pits that are supported by retaining walls, or we're going to have to figure out a way to plant trees on some very steep slides. Because if you look at the site, they own the slope on the west side going up into the sort of Strauss Run area, and that slope is where we're going to have to consolidate, I think, a lot of the plantings that are needed for that site, because there's nowhere else to put them. You know, the parking lot is not that big, and it's flat at the moment, and I suspect there'll be problems about moving fire trucks around it, and as we had with
Delivery
Bennigan's,
trucks,
delivery trucks and so
Delivery
on.
trucks and fire trucks basically take the same
Yeah.
amount of area.
We'd obviously like to get trees planted along the East State Street edge of the property, but that edge is certainly going to need, well, by the sound of it, it will have a retaining wall there, and so if trees can be planted into that, that will be a good thing. And then, yeah, is it worth actually contacting them and suggesting that while they're thinking about the design of that retaining wall?
If you'd like to come up with a list of preliminary recommendations or observations, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
To get to that.
Okay.
Because if a retaining wall is going to be supporting a soil plus a tree, it might
Plus a
need to
parking
be a
lot.
little bit sturdier. What?
It's a wall that holds the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Busy wall.
Right.
It's not like those little round walls across the street over
Yeah.
with Ruby Tuesdays. Now, this is actually going to be a wall, like over at Walmart, it's holding up
Mhm.
the drive area.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a serious wall.
Oh,
I mean, what is it, 12, 15 feet, I should think?
I don't know, we looked at that cross-section
Yeah.
of it. It's kind of hard to tell. When they put a line down, then they go like that.
Unknown depth.
Depends on whatever you need, and you can't tell if it's 3 feet tall or 30 feet tall.
Well, I'll get with you and find out who to write a letter to make these suggestions. Okay, is there anything else?
Yeah, I have one other thing. My family would like to donate a tree to the city of Athens in honor of Dean McWilliams,
Oh,
Albie's husband, so she can choose the species and the location, I figured.
okay.
So,
That's great.
Thank you.
About our meeting day.
Yes.
Is this going to be permanent?
We've been hunting around for a day at which we could get people together, and it turned out that Thursday was a good date. Thursdays are taken by other city organisations on other Thursdays, and so the first Thursday appeared to be a good one. That was why we selected
I
it.
had a feeling it would be that.
Yeah, and that was where it came from. It's both Paul and I expect Dave as well, found it difficult to get here
Sure.
in the mornings
Right,
to a meeting. There are difficulties with particular nights, Wednesdays, I know, Mondays with this room. So that meant Tuesdays or Thursdays. Tuesdays conflicted with something else. So
Zoning
Thursday.
board.
Zoning board on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is it the time or the day?
Oh, I just have their 3 things the first Monday, and now I'm sacrificing, it's sort of like.
The Sierra, or the
Sierra Club's
Club.
be
But
here
there's
now.
something else, an ongoing that preceded the Sierra Club, and now both of them are falling by the wayside. It's all right, it's just my social life, it's nothing.
Sorry about that.
Such dedication.
We're not
Thank
exciting enough?
Well, we'll bear it in mind if other conflicts arise. We're going to have to look for another date.
Is there a time, could we do it earlier in the evening or something? Would that help you? Like doing it at 5:30?
I think that's awfully hard. It's just-
Then people wouldn't get to
Just
eat
bringing,
dinner.
I just wanted to see, how.
Yeah. Now that was what happened when we were looking at the
Yeah.
the schedule.
I had that feeling, but I thought I should check.
Finished up. So, to say, if it gets to be a problem, we're going to have to renegotiate.
Yeah.
Anything else? In that case, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.